Yeah.
I said, let me find some kids that nobody else wants, athletically.
Right.
So what I used to call them is low body fat nerds. Let me find some low body fat nerds.
Right.
Because they're not doing anything else.
Right.
And and everyone needs an identity.
Yes.
Especially at that age.
Yes.
So I'm going to try to find some kids that don't have an identity, give them one, and then now I don't have anything to deal with. I don't have to deal with all these other things because they don't do anything else.
Right.
And so now they can get the muscle memory and the reps, and and mentally you can get them. You don't have the influence of maybe sorrier coaches or coaches that let them do sorrier ways.
Right.
So we can, so you kind of get to build your own athlete out of a piece of clay.
Welcome to the Off the Floor podcast. What is off the floor? Off the floor is a mentality. You're either eating off the floor, which is hunger, or you're getting off the floor, which is a bounce back. We all go through that in life.
Off the floor with my papa and your host, Calvin Wilson. Peace. Peace, birth Steelers.
So excited today to be with Coach Jess Wilder, man. He's a nationally ranked head coach. It's amazing, man. Here in this place, this football crazy, Camden County, we have one of the greatest coaches that I've ever known in my lifetime here as a wrestling coach. Coach, just glad to have you here today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I want to start off with how your childhood was, mother and father, and you had 3 siblings. You were born in Tallahassee, Florida?
Yeah, I was born in Tallahassee, Florida. I had I have 3. I have a 100% real brother, and then I have 2 real sisters. But we adopted my cousin, lived with me at a younger age, so she was older than me. So I just really didn't even think of her anything but a sister until I got old enough to realize she's not actually my sister when her mom would show up sometimes and all that. But anyway, and then when my parents got divorced and got remarried, there ended up being about total of us, about 5 brothers and 6 sisters. So it was
big family.
Well, big family. It's all blended in a bunch of different ways, but it's a pretty big family.
Yeah, and I see your brother around from time to time. I get him mixed up with you. You used to call him the Big Ugly or whatever. So I understand that. Now, during your early childhood, did you play other sports other than wrestle?
Yeah. Actually, I played football, baseball, soccer. Pretty much mostly those 3 all the way through youth. Played basketball a year, but it was like a sorry team just of a bunch of dudes in the neighborhood that one of the dads became a coach so we could all play. So it was fun, something to do. But I did those sports from basically, 2nd grade, 1st grade, whatever it is when you start doing those sports. And I did that through 8th grade. I really didn't wrestle really until 9th grade, till high school. I did wrestle for a summer in New York. My dad lived in New York, so after my parents got divorced when I was younger, my dad went to New York, and so when I'd go see him in the summers, and then I had to live with him in 5th grade. So I wrestled in 5th grade for a minute, like a little rec league type thing. So I was a little bit familiar with the sport, but they didn't even have it where I went to middle school, and so I just kind of just kept doing the normal sports I did. And then when I got to high school, I went straight to football season, of course, because it's the fall, and then. I was kind of looking for something to do in the winter, and one of the football coaches also helped wrestling, so he's, asked me to go out for the team. So went out for the team. I figured it'd give me something to do between football and baseball season, and then was pretty good for a new wrestler. Not great, but good enough that it was fun, and then just did it from that point on. It became my best sport.
So you a Florida and New York guy?
Yeah, typical Floridian, New York. Yeah,
that's pretty good. So in high school, you played football. What position you played in football?
So my freshman year, I started at quarterback. And
Coach, hold up. How tall are you?
5'6". Yeah.
So what type of offense did y'all run?
We just ran a regular. I mean, a little bit of everything. I mean,
you could throw it?
Had 2 back. No, I couldn't throw. We had a tight end that was probably 6'1" in 9th grade, big dude.
Right.
So we had 1 or 2 passes, like a down and out, and I just would drop back and throw it up high and hope he caught it. No, we basically ran the ball. We ran the ball most of the time. We ran a little bit of option. My brother that was the running back.
Right.
We were in the same grade. And then I was quarterback. So I did that. I wasn't very good. It's kind of dramatic to say right off the bat, but our starting quarterback at the beginning of the season He died.
Wow.
He was doing guys, it's so dark, but he was playing Russian roulette in the hood.
What?
And he shot himself.
And
died.
where is this? Where is
Palm
this?
Bay. This
Palm
is
Bay.
about 3.5 hours south of here.
Yeah.
Is where I went to high school. And so I was starting on defense, cornerback at the time, and then that happened. So, they were like, "All right, you need to be our quarterback the rest of the season."
Right there, man. When that happened, I'm just this is off the cuff here, but when that happened, how did the team respond to that?
I mean, it's a sort of transient area. So that was the first time I'd been to Palm Bay and met any of these people was then.
Oh, okay.
So, it wasn't, I mean, obviously it was sad and tragic, but it wasn't something deep in my mind and heart at the moment. It was just like, dang, that's Daryl did what? Oh man,
Wow.
And so, and then sadly, our starting tight end, who I swear to this day would have been potentially NFL, the guy I was just talking about who was like 6'1",
Right.
he got hit on the side of the road and died. So I went to his funeral in 9th grade.
Oh,
Wow. It was in a little town called Fellsmere. It was just a little south of Palm Bay.
Right.
But anyway, so I played cornerback originally, and then when when that happened to Daryl, I went over to offense and was a quarterback. And then sophomore year, then I went out for wrestling, and then did pretty good in wrestling. And I remember because, baseball can be a political sport,
Right,
and everybody knows everyone who's good in baseball their whole lives. And that was my favorite sport, and that was my best sport.
Right.
Like I was better at baseball than anything else. And so I was excited, looking forward to baseball. But we were coming up to districts in wrestling, and they had baseball tryouts, had the intercom going, signs. I said, so I go and I introduced myself to the baseball coach. I said, I know you don't know me. I just moved here, but I play second base usually, and all-star my whole life, this and that, So I'm all excited, ready to play. And he says, so I said, but I'm going to miss the tryouts because I got wrestling practice, and I got districts. And if I place top 4 in districts, I go to regions. And if I place top 4 in regions, I go to state. He says, so you can't be out here for another 2 weeks? I said, well, if I do well. He goes, well, I'm just going to tell you now, you're going to be suspended the first 7 games. I said,
wow.
And I wasn't a bad kid, but I had a little attitude to me. I was like, what, you suspend me for what?
Yeah.
He said, because you missed the tryouts. I said, I'm not doing anything wrong. I mean, I was smart enough even then to be like, I'm getting suspended for what? And he was like, well, you missed all that time, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, and he's like, you could still try out. I ain't saying you can't try out, but you're definitely not going to play for at least 7 games and this and that. So I never played.
Coach, that
ended my career in baseball. Coach, I'm not saying I would have been great, but I mean.
Coach, that's ironic. That's ironic because my senior year in high school, the summer before, I played semi-pro baseball with the men, and I was into baseball, but I ended up playing basketball. We went to the Elite 8 and lost by 2 points. And because I wasn't there doing the baseball stuff, when I did go out for baseball, we went to a game, and like Coach didn't play me. And I'm like, dude, and he punished me for not being at practice. I'm like, dude, I'm not at practice because I'm playing.
Right, I'm doing something productive.
Right. And so I ended up quitting myself also. Yeah. But that's amazing. So your early years and then your high school years, your coaches, what did you have any coach that that really influenced you more than any other coach? And that high school wrestling coach, did he motivate you, or you just got into wrestling and you just thought that it was something that you could be real good at?
So there's that stand out to me. There's 2 coaches that stand out to me. One is a man by David Quattrone. This is up in New York, upstate New York. So when I lived there in 5th grade for the full year, his son was a grade older than me, and he was our coach, and he was the soccer coach. So he coached the elite team, and we're wild but good, with soccer. And then soccer season in, and he goes, hey, I also coach wrestling, So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll wrestle,
So he was the one that introduced you to wrestling.
And then baseball season came, and he said, well, I also coach my son's baseball team because he was just a great dad.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying he wasn't a great coach. He was an awesome coach, but he was just a dad. He was doing that stuff to be a dad.
Right.
And so I played baseball with him, and so from that point on, every summer when I came up to New York, he would get me on his team. I'd be 3 weeks late. It didn't matter. He would be like, all right. And I'd instantly get in, play, and that gave me something to do. And he would, whenever he's taking his son to hit balls or throw, whatever, he would always, call me up, and I'd ride my bike over the bridge and I'd play. So he kind of just, he was a big influence because he just kind of was a good man.
But see, that's two different philosophies in coaching right there. Also, you had the one coach that said, when you get here, we welcome you.
Yeah.
Then you have the other coach, and I think what happens with not only with coaching, with just rules and regulations, period, is when you're so strenuous on the rules and regulations that it hurt the kid, then the rules and regulations ain't no good.
Right.
And so I think that's two different philosophies in coaching, and that guy there, he showed open arms when you got there, which is a really good thing. So in your high school career, you ended up being an all-state wrestler. Right? At what weight class were you? At what size were you at that time?
I wrestled 135 my junior and senior years. I probably weighed 50, 152, fat and happy in football season. And then honestly, if I had to do over again, I probably would have stayed up at 40 or 45. I would have been fine there, been able to perform.
Right.
And it's that, and just not knowing how to manage stuff, doing things the wrong way and all that. But anyway, so that's pretty much the weight class I wrestled in high school. Once I got to college, I was young though. I graduated at 17.
Me also.
So
when's your birthday, Coach?
August 4th.
Yeah, mine is July 26th. So you're a Leo.
Yeah,
I know. That's your philosophy right there. Yeah. Well, okay. So then you graduate. And then do you get a scholarship?
I do get a scholarship.
University of North Carolina, Pembroke.
Correct.
Okay. How many years did you stay there?
I stayed there 4 years. I did three. I started as a true freshman, and honestly, it was a lot. It was like, I was good, but it was just overwhelming, like just between the academics and the travel and I just kind of needed a break. A mental break, but I couldn't quit. It wasn't. It just didn't really have that in me. So I was like, Coach, I want a red shirt. And he's like, I really don't want a red shirt because you're a starter. And I said, this kid can go this weight class, that kid can go that weight class, and we'll be fine. They're good. I'll be in the room every day scrapping. I'm not trying to be sorry. I just want a red shirt. And so he allowed me to red shirt.
Wow.
And then I came back 2 more years.
Who was your coach then? Who was
his name was PJ Smith. Okay. He passed away recently, but he's in Hall of Fame. Good man, good guy.
Good.
And then I ended up transferring.
The transfer portal, people.
Yeah. So, what happened was it was a different time. So, I had full Pell Grant and full need, all that stuff, and then what my schooling the government wouldn't pay for, to be honest with you, is what I had in scholarship. So it wasn't just a pure full scholarship.
Right.
It's what they call a package deal, where they try to get you as much as they can.
This was the NAIA school.
D2, Division 2.
Okay,
yeah,
D2.
they're Division 2.
All right.
So anyway, coach used to make us turn in our financial aid form to him, and then he would turn it into the financial aid department.
Right.
Well, I turned mine into him, and he lost it, forgot about it. I don't know what happened, but he just said he calls me up in like late July, and I was working with a bunch of Carson-Newman alumni type people, and he says, hey, listen, I didn't turn this in on time, so you're not going to get the SEOG grant. You're not going to get the work study. You're not going to get all this free money I had.
Right.
He's like, and I gave away your scholarship because I just thought they told me how much I had available, and so I spent it, and I didn't realize that I didn't give you your money yet. And so of course I was mad. I was pissed, and I was offended. I was like, how do you forget about me?
Your guy.
Right. I'm your, I was your best kid on the team. Like, you don't forget about,
Right.
So I was a little pissed. And so, some of the guys I worked with were Carson-Newman alumni and wrestlers. Like, man, you got to transfer. That's crazy, And, at the time, the financial aid director at Carson-Newman was the head wrestling coach, Don Aaliyah. And he's another Hall of Fame guy. But anyway, the coach at Pembroke said you have to mail off the financial aid form and stuff like that back then.
Right.
They didn't have electronic.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's how you got mixed up in the.
So Don Aaliyah, he was financial aid director. He said, I can send it electronically because it was a brand new thing, and I can get it back in 2-3 days. Mm-hmm. And but Coach Smith's plan, the coach from Pembroke, said, fill it back. I'm gonna send it off. It's gonna take a month,
but you got
and
2 to 3 days.
You're gonna not be in classes in the fall,
Can't
and then you can enroll in the spring and go to nationals for me and stuff like that. No. I said, I'm trying to get a degree, because by then, I'm only 18 credits short of a degree in 2 semesters. I'm thinking I'm going back to school, having the easiest 2 semesters. I'm gonna wrestle, but I'm gonna have a blast, because and then all of a sudden I get hit with this a week or 2 before school starts that we spent your money. And you're going to just not go to school at all, just come up here and work, get a job, and then wrestle in the winter. So I'm in the spring. So then I tell my buddies about it. And they said, Coach Lee is the financial aid director. He can process it electronically faster than that. That don't sound right. And so he said, but you got to get a release from where you're at in order to happen. I said, I can get a release. I mean, the guy did me wrong. He better give me a release.
Right.
He ain't got any money to give me,
Right.
And so, so I called him up and said, can you give me a release? I said, I'm not telling you 100% that I'm leaving, but the coach from Carson-Newman said if he has a release, he can do, I was up and up with him about it. I said, he can get the process, and then I could come back to Pembroke if I want, or maybe I see what he's got.
How was that last year at Carson-Newman?
It was awesome. It was fun. I mean, it just is like, how they say everything happens for a reason.
Right.
If I don't do that transfer, besides the obvious good friends I met and different contacts I met.
But you started your coaching.
Right. I started my coaching career there.
Yes.
And an opportunity that I wouldn't have had.
Grad assistant, right?
Grad assistant. But he also was super instrumental in getting me the head job at Cumberland the very next year. So.
Okay, transitioning from being a wrestler to being a coach under him, let's go grad assistant. Being a grad assistant under him, what did you learn from him as far as going into, taking over a college program? You wasn't taking over a high school program at that time. You were taking over a college program.
So the college, when I was a grad assistant at Carson-Newman for 1 year, most of those guys were on my team the year before. So
it was kind of easy.
I was still, it was easy in aspects that they respected me because I was, I scrapped with them, and we, I was young, I was 22 still. So, and I wasn't, telling them to do anything that I didn't do. Right. So it was fine as far as, that kind of stuff. I didn't have much of a role as far as administrative stuff. Coach Aaliyah was an older coach then, so he kind of took care of all the paperwork and all that stuff, and I just ran practices and scrapped with the kids. So that was a good experience. But when I got the job at Cumberland never had a wrestling team. So I actually started the team. So it wasn't really taking over a college team. It was starting a college team. And
so how was that as far as what kind of money, because I know it wasn't like full scholarships, and how did you evaluate the talent?
Well, number one, you're desperate your first year. Just give me a bunch of bodies so I'm not forfeiting. I know I can't win if I'm forfeiting. So you got to take whatever you can get.
Right.
And then, my Coach Aaliyah did give me one bit of advice. He says, you're going to have to spend more money than you want to spend on a kid just to get someone at the national tournament, someone that's an All-American.
And then you can bring other people in because I have a kid.
Yes,
exactly. That was smart.
So that was really good advice. And so once I started recruiting instantly.
Who was your number one guy? Who was the number one draft pick that first year or second year that you brought in that kicked off your program?
So I had a kid named Chris Burns. He's not a kid. He was actually older than me.
What?
But he had out of high school, he had went to North Carolina at Chapel Hill, on scholarship.
Right.
And then he, things happening like they do in college. So he wasn't happy there, and he left. And he wasn't wrestling in college. Well, but we knew each other because we're basically the same age.
Right.
And then when I got the job, he called me up and was like, "Hey, man, I heard you're a head wrestling coach. Blah, blah, at college. What the heck, brother?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I never got my degree, man." He goes, "I'll wrestle. I can still wrestle, blah." And I said, "Heck yeah."
Did you have to give him a lot of money? You didn't have to.
Well, by then he was full financial aid because he was old enough to, he wasn't on his parents' income anymore. So he had the Pell Grant, stuff like that. And I gave him wrestling scholarship, and he could live off campus because he was old enough to live off campus.
Right.
So I didn't have to factor in the room and board. So I got him up there, and he was in my first year program. He was an All-American, and so that kind of, he's an older kid.
Do you still talk to him now?
I still do. We hung out at the beach probably a month or two ago.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah, He ironically lives in Palm Bay now.
Wow.
Even though he was from South Carolina and ended up meeting a girl down there and having a baby down there. So he's down there now.
And then not only that, how long after that did you start the women's program?
So it was probably, I started the men's program, I think in 1997. And
96.
Then 96?
Yeah,
Okay.
96.
And 96, 97, you're right. And then maybe a year or two later, the president of the college, he liked me. You know, there's some people that didn't like me, of course. I'm 23 on campus, you know, trying to win, trying to,
Right.
you know, get some respect, you know, and get some stuff done. And,
23.
you know, yeah.
Wow.
So the president of the college did like me, though, because he gave me some expectations, and I'm like, yeah, I can do that. And I met him and asked for more and give me more, and I'll get you more. And, you know, and so he called me in, and I was like, oh, what's the president? Because there's people that worked there for 20, 30 years that never met the presidents of the school, you know. And and I was like, well, I wonder what he wants. I said, well, I go in a little like apprehensive, like, did I do something? I don't think I did anything. Anyway, he's like, hey, what do you think about this article? And he sends me, pushes it across the table. And it was an article of a brother and sister that were wrestlers, a sister that wrestled in Virginia. And he said, what do you think about that? I said, I mean, I don't know. I said, what do you mean what I think about it? He goes, what do you think about girl wrestling? I said, well, my sisters used to beat my ass growing up all the time. So, I mean, I know they can fight. I know some of them can wrestle, you know. And I was like, but I mean, I don't have a strong opinion either way. I mean, I hadn't really been, I was an athlete, and then I coached, and then I was still young, you know.
Right.
And but you know, I'm not a sexist dude, you know. I'm not like, you know, with that kind of stuff. And so he was like, what do you think we could start a women's? Is there enough market out there? Basically, he's a businessman. He's the president of college.
He's trying to get more money.
He's not necessarily worried about winning.
Right.
He's worried about making money from school, tuition driven. But, you know, I'm about, okay, I'll make you money, but you got to take care of these kids. And you got to take care, you know, you got to make sure they have money for travel, gear, they all could compete, that they, you know, that they can get a degree. Like, you know, you're not going to use me and use them. We're going to use each other.
And we talking about this, it might be the first program, I mean, you know, you're starting at this school, but this is only the second program in the whole nation that's starting this women's stuff. So you like out on the front on this thing, and you had to coach both teams.
Yeah, and so what I told him was in that meeting, I said, well, there's only one school in the United States that has women's wrestling, and it's Minnesota Morris. I go, if I live in Florida, Georgia, I'm not going to Minnesota Morris. It's too cold, and that's the middle of nowhere.
So
I'll come to Cumberland.
Exactly.
Yeah. I was like, so I'm going to get anyone in the Southeast.
Exactly.
If we're even remotely competitive financially as Minnesota Morris,
which
they don't have no competition, so you know they're doing whatever they want. I was like, then we can build a team. Well, he was like, well, do you mind just kind of putting fillers out in the wrestling community that we're going to start a women's team and just see how it goes? I said, you know, yes, sir, no problem. So I do. Well, I mean, shoot, just like I thought, I'm 20 calls of girls that wrestle that want to come to college, and I don't have a problem with it, but I'm a men's coach, and I'm getting paid to coach the men's team. You know, that's not fair to the girls or my boys that all of a sudden I'm spending all this time with recruiting girls and all that. So I went back to the president and said, hey, good news is this thing is worked great. We need there's definitely a need in the United States for girls wrestling, but I can't shortchange them, and I can't shortchange my men. We need a girls coach. And he said, okay, fair enough. Can you hire someone, and they'll be underneath you for a year or so, and then till we can. And
you're 24 years old at this time.
Yeah. And so we do that, and then eventually we get a good one, and it blossoms, and they you know, it's still there today, and they're still, you know, a strong program today. We ended up having an Olympian there, Takara Montgomery, one of the first Olympians in women's wrestling. I think it was 2000. Apologize for not knowing that, Takara. But anyway, I'm getting old. But anyway, so
96, you were the rookie coach of the year. 97, 98, you were conference coach and something else coach of the year. And you had 5 national champs there, 41 All-Americans. And they put you in the Hall of Fame in 2016 at the Cumberlands, man. And now you're at the Cumberlands, and then how do you get from college coaching to Camden County? But you wasn't the head coach at Camden County, not the varsity. You were at what? St. Mary's or Camden Middle?
At the time, the two were together.
That's right.
So
that's right.
I actually worked at the.
Was it at Mary Lee Clark?
No. It was. I worked at the alternative school, which was over there on campus, ninth grade center. Yes. So we had a mat on the carpet in the ninth grade gym, and that's where I ran. Both middle schools got bussed over there, and I ran that practice there.
So you were the middle school coach. Why did you transition from being a college coach? And not saying that you would come in here to be a middle school coach.
No.
But what brought you here?
So what brought me here is a couple of the wrestlers that I coached in college. Okay. They now moved back south, and one of them coached at Glenn Academy. And the other one was the coach at Camden High School. Somehow he ended here. He had no ties here, but he ended up here.
Who was that?
Charlie Higdon was his name.
Higdon.
He was only here for 2 years. So what happened is I had started having kids, so now I got married and I have kids.
Come back
and
closer to the
my
house.
kids are 3 and 4-ish.
Right.
And I'm looking at my schedule, and when I first got hired, 23, I had the dream schedule. I mean, I didn't teach a class.
Right.
I slept in whenever I want. I used to get annoyed when we'd have a head coaches meeting at 10 a.m. once a month. I'd be like, oh, we got that stupid meeting where they're going to just talk about nothing,
Right.
And anyway, so, and then I go and hang out with wrestlers who I've been hanging out with my whole life, and I get to coach and scrap, and we travel, and I coach, I don't even have a job.
Right.
But then once I started having the kids, I started realizing, okay, I can go to bed whenever I want, but they got to go to bed when they start school. They got to be in bed 7 or 8 o'clock at night. Okay, so when they wake up at 6 in the morning, I just went to bed at midnight or 1 whenever I wanted to.
Right.
So I'm not seeing them then, unless I have to force this wild schedule. So then they go. I'm home all day. Well, they're at school.
Right.
Now this didn't happen. I just envisioned this
in your
happening.
head.
Yeah. I said so. Then when they get off school around 3, well, that's when all the boys, the college classes get out, and that's when you run wrestling practice. So then I would be in practice till 6. Then we got study hall. We got other things. I'm not getting home at 9 at night. Well, they're already in bed.
Right.
So that's a normal day on a Monday through Friday or Monday through Thursday. Well, in college schedule, I'm driving on the weekends when I would spend time with my kids or coach them at their games. I was in tournaments 9 hours away, 10 hours away. So now I got to drive to Missouri. So I'm getting home Sunday. I'm tired. I'm like, so I'm not going to see my children, And so I was like, this schedule is the exact opposite of the dream schedule. Once I've went to the stage where I have children now.
Tell me this. So the divorce of your mom and dad, did that kind of say, hey, I need to
No. Okay. Probably just my passion to be a good father,
daddy.
So
you were protective in sense you like to protect.
I wanted to be a better dad than I had.
Gotcha.
So.
Gotcha. Cool. So, all right, you're at the middle school, and how many years you coached at the middle school?
Just one. So basically, I talked to my wife about it, and she's from Palm Bay. She's from Melbourne. Okay. And so I said, this is a dream job for me. I'll never have a job that I like this much, and it's but I think we should go back home, and so that way we can raise our kids. Get on the coast. We're both from obviously that's on the beach, or not on the beach, but on the coastline. Yeah. And then by then I had tons of friends that worked in school systems in Georgia and Florida, and so I said, let me just kind of put some feelers out there, and so a lot of my buddies around the Atlanta area were like, come here, you can take over this program, and that kind of stuff. And then I was, and I liked the idea of Atlanta because it was, it's a lot to do. It's a big city, a lot of stuff for your kids too. And
but the water, no water.
Yeah, it wasn't any water, and it was just that much farther away from family. And then,
thank God for no water in Atlanta. Yeah, we got the man here.
So I had the buddy that was coaching at Glenn and the buddy that was coaching at Camden. I said, well, we're driving through. We're going to Palmer this weekend. I want to stop by and just see your stay with you for a night. And so that's what we did. We visited and did that, and I had my 3-year-old, 4-year-old, and just looking at, the marsh, which in Florida we call that swamp, but y'all sell it as marsh property. But anyway, I was like, wait, what are you talking about? Marsh? That's not marsh. You can't do nothing with that. That's a swamp, No, but anyway, good sales pitch. But anyway, so I was like, babe, we gotta do it. I don't, and my team coming back, I feel like we'd have won nationals. It's easy to say, but I had a cute, awesome team coming back, several national champs. And I said, you know what, let's just hold our breath and just jump and start a new life.
And so what conditions did you find the program in when you came? Like when you got to the high school?
I did not care at all.
Right.
I did not care. My goal was to get here, get a decent job for my family, do what I'm supposed to do at work, keep my job, raise my children, and that's it. That was the end of my goal. I didn't have any athletic goals as far as coaching at all.
Wow.
I came here to not do much with wrestling.
Wow.
Because, as obviously a head college coach, you do a lot.
So
what
happened? So why?
Well, the head coach left.
Right.
And his wife did something, whatever. They had to go to Atlanta. And so he kind of left after the end of my first year there. And so some of the parents wanted me to take over. And I had a couple offers at colleges now.
Begrudgingly taking over. Like, you really didn't want to?
No, I absolutely did not want to be the head coach at all. I really didn't. But basically I talked to a person I trust, and I said, is there a chance, because I'd heard a rumor that if I didn't take people aren't going to like this, but I'd heard a rumor that if I didn't take the head job, that I wouldn't get my teaching contract renewed because I was only here 1 year.
Yeah, we're going to get rid of you.
And I said, that's crazy. That's not real. You can't do that. Because I'm from like a more of a bigger city area. And
that's okay, but we will get rid of you.
So I was like, so I called, the person I trust, and I said, hey, is there any, could this really happen? He said, it absolutely could happen. I said, oh my God. So I said, these people are crazy. But anyway, so I get on the phone, and I had the Pembroke had offered me the head job. Well, they didn't offer me a head job. That's a lie. They wanted me to interview for it, and the head coach did, who I'd wrestled for. And because when I left Cumberland, I didn't tell anyone.
Right.
I didn't, I wasn't looking for another job. I was looking to move to the coast to raise my family.
Right.
So I just kind of snuck out in the middle of the night. I told my bosses, due diligence time and all that stuff. But anyway, so, I had a couple of different job offers throughout that year. Because people were like, where the heck are you at? Where's this at? And so I was just like, oh, I'm happy. Well, then that happened. And so basically I said to my wife, I said, what do you want to do? Like, I'm not going to be a head coach and suck. Like, I'm not going to do that. Yeah. And they're not going to, what they're doing now is not it.
Not going to get it.
Right. So, but the only way we're going to get good is I'm going to have to be all in. Like, we're going to have to do this the right way. If we're going to win and be successful, and I'm going to be happy, because I'm not going to be happy not winning.
Okay, so getting in there, and they're not doing it the right way. Well, what's your formula? What's your formula when you say they're not doing it? And it's not begrudging. Yeah. I mean, we're not trying to down anybody who's here before you, but the right way. And because listen, man, I'm telling you, for years, at least the past 5 years, I'm trying to figure out, man, what is this wrestling coach doing? What is he doing over here? Because it's not just physical, it's a mental toughness that you can't buy. Like, and I've seen people try to buy it or try to cheat to get it, but the mental toughness that your guys seem to come up with to win state. Like, I know Hunter Prosen. Like, that's my guy. He went to the elementary school, and I've seen him grow up. And he's been wrestling since he's been a little boy. And I know some of the other kids that's been through your program, and there's some stand-up kids. I mean, what are you doing? What are you guys doing?
The first early years was just real simple. Anyone could do is don't talk when I'm talking.
Yeah.
Show up to practice. You're supposed to be here.
Right.
Do some extra stuff.
Right.
So that was the first couple of years, was just setting an expectation.
And how good were you guys then? Not very good. Competitive.
I think, honestly, I don't remember the exact number, but I think the year before I took over, they finished like 30th in the state or something, like 28, 32nd. I mean, something pretty bad. In my opinion, bad. And so, but we had a couple returning kids that were pretty good wrestlers, and some of them had some experience, but they just were used to doing whatever they wanted to do,
right.
As far as, time put in and what they were doing during that time. And so we kind of had to work through those. We had to get with a group of them like, hey, just quit now, because I don't care if you quit, because we're not winning state with you anyway. Like, we're 3-4 years away. So all you quitting is just going to help the program, because I'm going to have more time with kids that you can beat now. Only because you can beat them is because of your experience and your age.
Right.
So I don't want you to quit, but if you do quit, I'm not begging you. And you're not going to talk while I'm talking.
Right.
You're not going to, play little stupid games and be disrespectful and all this other kind of stuff. So it was really just kind of setting an expectation that we're taking this thing serious. If you don't take it serious, go find something else to do. So that was the first couple years. of just kind of getting that.
So how did the kids, and I see that they bought in, but early on buy in, and not just the kids. Did you have any kickback from the parents?
Oh, I mean, of course,
Yeah.
of course. I think that what I did is I found the type of kid I needed to recruit.
Yeah, hit me with that formula.
So when I was a college coach, I had camps. So my buddies from college were all high school coaches. So they bring their high school teams
Right.
up. So we'd be, playing cards or whatever during camp week at night. And once I thought I might start going to high school, I started seeking their advice, or leave. And they were like, you got to get the best athletes and you got to have a youth program. That's, you got to get a good relationship with the football and, the better athletes, which is pretty much football.
Right.
And you got to start them young. Well, when I got down here, I started trying to do that, and I got burnt every time and time again. I got burnt.
Yeah.
Oh, coach, I'm focusing on football. Oh, we're moving because we can't help it because we're military.
Right.
Or this is happening. That or the kids you go 2 years, 3 years with a youth kid, and then they get transferred out, or they start like it was just like there was no consistency and no loyalty and no commitment.
Right.
And then I just was like I can't win with these kids. And then like you would work with a kid, get him where he's almost good, and then his junior year he's feeling himself now. So now he's like, oh, I'm just gonna play this. I'm not gonna wrestle anymore.
Wow.
So you're like, man, so
I put in all this.
long
time.
story short,
Yeah.
I said, let me find some kids that nobody else wants. Athletically.
Right.
So what I used to call them is low body fat nerds. Let me find some low body fat nerds.
Right.
Because they're not doing anything else.
Right.
And and everyone needs an identity.
Yes.
Especially at that age.
Yes.
So I'm going to try to find some kids that don't have an identity, give them one, and then now I don't have anything to deal with. I don't have to deal with all these other things because they don't do anything else.
Right.
And so now they can get the muscle memory and the reps, and and mentally you can get them. You don't have the influence of maybe sorrier coaches or coaches that let them do sorrier ways.
Right.
So we can, so you kind of get to build your own athlete out of a piece of clay.
Coach, I want to stop you right there because I'm trying to. So how many kids do you think have, since you've been here? I know you don't have a correct number. But how many kids you think done came through your program? About how many?
I think this is my 19th full year.
Uh-huh.
As a head coach anyway. I think it's my 20th year in Camden. I figure that 50 times, I don't know, thousands, over 1,000. As far as they make, a lot more than that, obviously, that come out and try out and say, okay, it's not for me. But as far as, I know.
Man, let me tell you something. And this just coming from me, just that, man, you play an important role in these kids' lives. You got football team, but you got a whole bunch of coaches. You got a few coaches out there with you, but I think you've made a positive impact in these kids' lives, man, that I appreciate. I appreciate because to get a kid to be disciplined in anything at that age, because we were that age,
yeah,
and we were hard heads, and we did stuff that we shouldn't do. But I had a coach in Elwin Davis that was my head coach as a basketball coach that I respect. He's dead now, but I respect him as a man for the rest of my life. And I try to emulate some of the stuff that he's done and help some of the people that he's helped. And I know these kids come back and they really appreciate the stuff that you've done over the years. And I'm just telling you, I do too. Okay, so I want to get to the early development, the philosophy, the toughness, and now, man, we talking about 25 total state championships as a team. You said 12 traditional, 13 dual, but 12 straight in both. And kind of explain the traditional and the duals, because I kind of got mixed up. When I initially contacted you, it was after the what? Which one was first?
Duals.
The duals.
Duals are first.
And so then when I saw that you were doing the traditionals, I kind of left you alone. I said, I went to hit, and then I looked and I said, well, coach them at the end of this thing, let him finish up, because I don't want to be a jinx or anything to the program. But kind of explain to the people if they don't know.
Okay, so in a dual format, the dual state championships, basically Camden County High School, there's 14 weight classes in high school wrestling. So Camden County has to put a kid in each of those 14 weight classes. And then those kids will wrestle against, hypothetically, Collins Hill's 14 kids. So same weight class. Each team puts one kid out there at the weight class.
That's in duels?
In duels.
Okay.
And so they wrestle, and at the end of the duel, based on all 14 matches, whoever scores
Team
the
moves
most
on.
points, that team moves on in the bracket as a team.
Okay.
So you could have a kid who is terrible, loses every match, but his team advances, so he advances.
So he get
the
to play
state
again.
championship.
Yeah.
Just like any other team, basically, is how the duels, how you advance. And then the traditional or individual tournament, as it's known, is you could be at a high school that has a terrible wrestling team, and you could just, maybe let's say you're from New York and you've wrestled your whole life, and you move to, I'll just say a random school, Baldwin, just make up a school that's terrible with wrestling. They barely even have a team, but you're already really good.
Right.
And so you can go to state as an individual. So instead of entering that bracket as a team, the traditional bracket, you enter as an individual, and then you win and you advance to the next round. You win, you advance the next round, and you win an individual state title. So at the state tournament itself for individuals, you score points based on how far you go, how many you advance, and what you place in state. So it's a little confusing, I know, but ultimately the dual format is a team against team, 14 weight classes, your best 14 against their 14, and the individual is you could go by yourself and go through a bracket and win it.
What's the highest we've been ranked nationally at the end of the year?
I mean, there's a lot of different polls. I think we've been maybe 18. We usually sit between 18 and 32, just depending on the year and what poll it is.
What's the best team you think you had?
I mean, the probably today's this year, 2026.
Yeah.
They're probably the best team. There is I think it was 2019 was really, really good,
right.
As well as it was right around there, 2018, 2019. But this year's team, I mean, the truth is they've been important in us winning state since they were freshmen.
Right.
Like 100 Prosen or Ryder Wilder. Those kids won state.
Right. Yeah.
As ninth graders.
Right.
So, they kind of have been there all 4 years. And, I would say, truthfully, it's probably this graduating class right now.
For real?
Yeah.
100 though?
Oh, yeah. And the teams that we beat,
that's
2 of the last 4 years, the teams that we beat from Buford,
right,
we wouldn't have beat them with any of our other state championship teams.
Wow.
They were that good. They've been nationally ranked. We've just been a little better or had a better tournament or whatever you want to call it.
But see, it's amazing. It's amazing the streak that you own and what you've done with the program because of the football and because of how much is put into the football, how much light is put on the football team and everything. And to be able to choose those athletes and get those athletes to work so hard, that's just amazing to me. Now, you've been elected to the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. Man, what was that like? That was just past year, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously an honor. I don't really, I'm not really big into those type of things.
Right.
But it was, it's cool in aspects that it's really recognizing that our team's been good for so long. Because you really this is going to sound really twisted, but you could be a terrible coach, but if you got all the talent and you're getting all the recruits and transfers, you're going to get in the Hall of Fame because your team's going to win a lot, state tournaments or national tournaments. Yeah. So really it's a reflection of the overall commitment of, the Camden wrestlers from that I've ever been around, till now, of the time they've put in. And that's what was allowed me as an individual kid to get that award. But ultimately that's never been my goal. And no disrespect to the other members or the concept itself, but it didn't mean that. I don't know how to say that. I don't want to say that, but I don't want to say it didn't mean that much to me because that's wrong.
No, I get it. But you, as an individual, it was more of a corporate with your kids and everything else. It's a good honor to have.
It is.
It's a good honor. And before you got here, we only had 2 state champions, I think, and it was Calvin and Johnny Simon. I mean,
yeah,
and those were brothers.
Yeah, I think there was a few more, maybe
there's a
one
few
more.
more. Okay.
Maybe Billy Gillett.
The Gillett.
One of Gillett.
Yes,
One of Tony.
yes, Tony.
Tony. One of them for sure.
Tony or
I
Billy.
should know this, but yeah. And then I think that was it though. And no disrespect, but that was like in the 70s or
Yeah. And
80s.
and these guys were the 80s.
Super successful men though. Right now, all of them are good dudes.
Yeah. And Coach, looking back at that 4-year, 5-year-old kid that started sports and seeing where you're at now, like, do you have, this show is called Off the Floor for a reason, because throughout everyone's journey, we have those ups and downs, or we just have those, something that makes us hungrier than we've ever been to succeed, and what has been your drive when you look back? It could, like you said earlier, when me and you talked earlier, like it could be different things in different stages, but what is it you would like to share with with the audience?
Honestly, I grew up real poor, so when I was probably 4 or 5, when my parents got divorced, my dad moved to New York. And my mom had an 8th grade education, and she had all the kids. And so we went from living out in the country of Tallahassee, which is now actually called Killearn, is a rich community, but it used to just be woods.
Right.
So we went from living there, and I moved into Hickory Hills, which is a Section 8 projects on Jackson Bluff Road. So, for those, 4 or 5 years.
Are you the oldest, youngest?
Youngest.
Wow.
So, we're getting a hard, it's life, what I'm saying? So
yeah.
We're just dumb things like, you play backyard football, and you have the way like a lot of projects, it has like long buildings, and then it elves out, and then in between it has concrete, sidewalk,
and then they might have what you call it, where they hang the clothes at.
Yeah, well, it has the ACs all on the side, so people try to tackle you into the ACs. They try to carry you over to the concrete to tackle you on the concrete. Yeah, they try to hurt you, and and obviously we're the only white kids in the projects.
Wow.
So I had to take some. I had to take some heat, but I also met some great human beings that did have my back, and my family's back. So, I didn't grow up, spoiled. I grew up a little grittier, and I think that helped me later on in life just be more open-minded and a little tougher. Maybe, I'm not saying physically I'm the toughest guy, but just mentally, little things that going without has never been a big deal. Cutting weight was never a big deal because I've been hungry before when I could eat. Not trying to be all sad and and try to get someone feel sorry for me. I'm just saying, like, I've had the real block cheese. I've had the real food stamps. I've had the powdered milk where you're like, man, this ain't friggin' milk. You know what I'm saying? Like, so in my and my mom.
Did she ever complain?
No, she said being poor don't make you act poor. Because we're poor don't mean you got to be poor or behave poor. Or, make poor grades. That was like her thing. She always used the analogy of poor. We may be poor, but we ain't. That kind of stuff. And then she went from, like I say, 8th grade education. She ended up being like I don't know the exact number, 3rd or 4th female in the state of Florida to get her A&P license, mechanic license. And so, she built herself back up and, so life was not traditional cookie cutter for me growing up, but, I think it helped me when, like moving to college. I mean, I thought I won the lottery, going in that lunch line first time, and they're like, I can get them back here as much as I want. Yeah. I can get a double cheeseburger every day. Yeah. I can get this and that. Yeah. Like looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, this is, I got my own bed, got my own room. Like, it was so, whereas other kids were like, man, this dorm sucks. They ain't got heat. They ain't got air. They ain't got but anyway, so I'm probably more appreciative of than the average dude, I don't know that, but as far as where I'm at in life, my goals have, are different. Like when I was leaving Cumberland, my goal was just to be a good dad. You know what I'm saying? Like, and my goal my whole life has been to never be poor again. It's not to be rich. It's just I just don't want to be poor because I've been poor. And being poor sucks. And so that's so I don't know if my edge, if you want to call it that, or the name of the show, if it comes from just being from humble beginnings or hard times when you're younger, having a strong mom, that kind of stuff. It's a mixture of a lot of things. Is she still living? No, she's not. But when I started having kids in Kentucky, I moved her up with me, and she lived with me and helped raise my kids. And then when I moved down here, I got her. She moved in with us, and I actually had my third child while I was living here. So she watched those, my youngest kid, and then she passed away, when he was probably about 4-ish. And that's when my brother Carl came up and actually helped watch my kid, who he's never had a kid. But I was like, mom just died, mom died all of a sudden, a heart attack in the house, type thing. And so anyway, I think just the mix between the childhood not being traditional and not wanting to be poor, those have been my two biggest motivators, I guess, without overanalyzing it, to try to be successful. So, where those connect or relate to wrestling, I don't really feel sorry for a lot of these kids because they're, they got their projects got Olympic-sized swimming pools sometimes, right? Like, bro, this is where you live. I heard this place was rough. Like, this is crazy. Come on. But anyway, no, I'm not saying people don't have it bad, but some people do, and there's a lot of different things, but I'm not, necessarily feeling sorry for people because they don't feel perfectly comfortable.
That's good. Hey, man, I appreciate you, Coach. I really do, man. And it's been an honor and to have this guy on here. Like I said, for probably the past 7 years, I've really been wanting to shine a light on this personality. I don't know him. Now I do. And I hope we become friends and continue to be friends from here. But thank you guys for joining in, and see you soon.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me.